Hi everyone, welcome to Raaonline. I am Dr. Priyadarshini Shanmugam, Professor of Microbiology, and today we are going to talk about biomedical waste management. And biomedical waste management is an important chapter which you will be practicing throughout your career. So it's better that we get it right as you are learning it itself. So the learning objective for this session will be, what is the definition of biomedical waste? In short, it's known as BMW. What is the scope of application? That is, what are the agencies to which it is applicable? What are the categories of biomedical waste? Then how we segregate the waste? What are the appropriate containers for the different categories of biomedical waste? How the biomedical waste is transported? What is the final treatment of the biomedical waste? And then a few points on how to deal with the biomedical waste generated from COVID positive patients and thereby COVID wards. So these guidelines were recently introduced in 2020. So now let's go on to the definition of biomedical waste. It's very clear. This is given by the Ministry of Environment and Forest as well as the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So the biomedical waste is defined as any waste that is generated during the diagnosis, treatment or immunization of human beings or animals, or in any research activity which pertains to the production or the testing of biological substances. So whether you do any diagnostic procedure or a therapeutic procedure or any vaccination, that is immunization, whether you do it for human beings or whether you do it in animals. And similarly, any research activity also which produces all this, which involves production, when you produce mass amount of biological substances, which may contain microorganisms, or when you test these biological substances, all these activities will generate a lot of waste, and that waste is known as biomedical waste. So three important activities with respect to medicine, that is diagnosis, treatment and immunization of individuals. So we can see that it's not only implying to human beings, but it also involves in the veterinary sciences also. And the sources of biomedical waste can be a primary source and other sources. So if biomedical waste can be generated, so the main source will be hospitals. You have small nursing homes, clinics. At the same time, you can have veterinary hospitals and veterinary clinics also. Not only those which treat human beings, but also animals. Then you have some dispensaries, standalone blood banks can also generate biomedical waste. Apart from it, other sources of biomedical waste is, yes, when you have a patient at home itself, so you can have household, then industries where you may have small medical centers, similarly in educational institutes, and of course our research centers such as those working on multi-drug resistant organisms or genetic engineering or production of vaccines and all that. So these are the sources of biomedical waste. And what is the quantity of waste? How do you quantify the amount of waste that is generated? So this data is usually taken up from the WHO, that is the World Health Organization database. And what you will be surprised to know is 85% of the waste that is generated in a hospital is non-hazardous. That means it's not dangerous, it's not infectious, or it doesn't have any toxic chemicals. So this 85% of the hospital waste will only be paper. Non-infectious paper, cardboard or plastics, and of course kitchen waste, which is organic waste. And only the remaining 15% is known as hazardous waste. Why you call it hazardous? Because it can pose a health hazard, a threat to our safety. So we call it as hazardous waste. And again, this 15% is classified into infectious waste and non-infectious waste. Out of this 15%, 10% is infectious waste and 5% is non-infectious waste, but it is still hazardous because it may contain chemicals which may be carcinogens like methyl chloride and formaldehyde. So even though it is not infectious, it is still a hazardous waste. So this is how we will be classifying the waste, and this is a pie diagram which is representing the same data which I told you. So 85% being non-infectious waste, and then you have 10% being the infectious waste, and then you have the other types of pharmaceutical, cytotoxic, radioactive waste and all that. And in India, for one inpatient bed, you can have between 0.5 to 2 kg of this waste being generated per bed per day by most of the hospitals in India. And why do we call the waste as hazardous? Because as I already told you, it may contain infectious agents, and people who handle this waste can get the infection. So you can get HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, multi-drug resistant organisms which are there in the waste can infect healthy, otherwise healthy healthcare workers or supporting staff. You can have sharps, and if they are not properly disposed of, this can lead to injuries to the same healthcare workers. Plus this waste can have toxic hazardous chemicals, pharmaceutical products which can also cause some dangerous reactions in the human beings. Sometimes of course like in the radiology department you can contain radioactive materials which is also again can be cancer causing.